All right, to discuss the firing of Chris Jones as head coach and GM of the Edmonton Elks, here is CFL Insider Farhan Lalji, fresh off an exciting trip to Europe. He's tanned, he's rested, he's ready. Here he goes. Let's talk about Chris Jones. Not exactly a major surprise given the start to the season, and yet, you know what, David Sanchez made a great point on this show yesterday, Farhan. Is there anyone better out there? Obviously, the Elks feel that from within, they've got a couple of guys who can do the job. But what were your initial thoughts about this Jones firing?
Yeah, you know, I wasn't sure it was going to happen in season. And first of all, thanks for noticing the tan and mentioning the vacation. But as far as Chris Jones is concerned, I wasn't sure it was going to happen now. And the reason for that is that with his contract, you know, going until next season and with the pending ownership change of the Elks, where they're potentially going from community ownership to private ownership, I thought there were a number of variables in place that would keep him there. And I wasn't necessarily sure they felt comfortable with who was in the building, because you don't have anybody there that maybe has been a head coach before that could necessarily take over. So Jarious Jackson's going to get a shot at it. Geroy Simon is going to get a shot at it. But ultimately, when you look at how they've lost games and just how upset the fan base is right now, and you know, you lose 3 games on a walk-off field goal, 4 straight games that were decided by 3 points. And when that happens, coaching affects every one of those games. Little things are the difference in a 3-point loss. And when you look at especially how things happened this past game, coming off a bye, when you have that late in the game, you score the touchdown, but you leave too much time on the clock, you can't execute a simple squib kick, all of that, those are things that get coaches fired. So ultimately, despite all those variables that kept Chris Jones employed, this had to happen.
You mentioned the inexperience for Jarious Jackson and the inexperience for Geroy Simon, but had you, as someone who really knows this league, Farhan, did you expect these guys to be in this role at some point? Maybe it's happening a little sooner than you expected, but did you expect this was going to happen for Geroy Simon and Jarious Jackson?
Probably more so Geroy than Jarious at this stage. Now, Jarious has had some time as an offensive coordinator, worked under Wally Bono, but you don't hear his name at any point mentioned for these jobs, right? Whereas, with Geroy, he's kind of been down the interview process, and when you look at Chris Jones, he's given Geroy an opportunity to do quite a bit. They had a smaller football operations staff when the group came together because of what was going on with the Caps. So Geroy has done a lot in that chair in Edmonton. So I thought he was probably a little bit more ready for that opportunity. So, we'll find out, because ultimately one of the reasons Edmonton did this now is they wanted to have a bit more of a long runway to hire these 2 positions on a full-time basis, because usually what happens in this league is you get to Grey Cup week and we start talking about the names, and then very quickly after the Grey Cup, these things get turned around. Now, if you're the Elks organization, potential new owners, current president Rick Lawlisher, all of them, now you've got a real opportunity to see what's out there, to cast a wide net, and to go through a longer, more legitimate process to do this. So for Jackson and Simon, here's your opportunity. Here's your audition, guys.
Let's talk about the fact that this team, though, they are 0-5, Farhan, and you kind of touched on it. All 5 of those losses were by 1 possession. So I think the other argument out there is that maybe this Edmonton Elks team isn't quite as bad as their record would suggest. Would you agree with that sentiment?
Well, look, the games are closer. I think their pieces are better, and offensively they're certainly better. But, it shocks me that their defense has been as bad as it's been, because Chris Jones is known as a defensive savant. And then this year he brought in Jason Shivers to help as the defensive coordinator. But they share similar philosophies. They know how to work together and what the other wants. And for whatever reason, this defense is perpetually young. Usually you go through a process of a couple of years of building, and then you reap the rewards of that. This hasn't happened. And you look at the roster week in and week out, there's multiple changes on the defensive side of the ball. It's tough to build any level of continuity, and you watch how that secondary is playing right now, and it's just not very good. And on top of that, they can't rush the passer. So seeing where they are, the games are closer, but ultimately you are what your record says you are.
This is interesting, because we were already looking forward to Friday night's rematch between the Red Blacks and Elks. Quick one right back in Ottawa. Now it becomes even more intriguing with Jarious Jackson on the sideline. And by the way, Farhan, fresh off vacation, right back at it with us, not only on this show, but tomorrow he'll join us for a look at the Canucks offseason. How excited are you to return for tomorrow's show, Farhan?
Excited.
All right, that's Farhan Lalji, everybody.